Alright, I don't know if I zoomed in enough, but let me see. Okay, that might be better. I'm seeing VU meters, good. Alright, as you can see, no hum FM transmitter. It's either no hum or very, very little. I'm almost deaf, so maybe there's some hum, but this sounds a whole lot better. And it may be the way I connected it. Now, for 35, well, since the 70s, people in tech school were, making FM transmitters and trying to jam people's FM radios and having fun with, pirate radio stations in the barracks and everything. But there's always this AC hum, this little. This, as far as I know, has no hum and it sounds good. Now with these components, I didn't hit the FM broadcast band. I went a little higher, so that could be a no-no if I'm interfering. But the power's pretty low, and I walked around the neighborhood up and down the street with an FM radio to see when it dropped out. So, and I rarely use it, but this is a learning circuit. It's real good for different reasons. Let's get into it because I'm running my mouth too much. Music from a CD player. Now you may have other sources, your phone. You may have to tweak the components for different devices, but I have an old boombox that works very well, and I adjust the volume for the whole circuit here at the CD player. Now, the music source is coming out of the headphone jacks. If you have some kind of system where you have speaker outputs, don't use those. That's a different impedance. This is headphone jack. So if you notice left and right, the left one goes to the bass. The right channel goes way over here goes right to the tank circuit, and it affects some components that affect the frequency. Alright, so I used a diode and a capacitor. And what am I doing there when I add a changing voltage to this point? I vary the capacitance. Okay, that change in capacitance changes the tank circuit, which changes, yes, the frequency. Okay, so that's like a varactor diode. Well, you can buy varactor diodes if you want to. I have some. Or you can buy various rectifier diodes, 1N 4001 to whatever. Experiment in your junk box and see what works best. In this case, I used a 1N 4007. Now, I think the difference between the 4001 and 4007 is what? How much current it can handle. So maybe something like that, but I don't know if that has an effect on capacitance. Could be. Anyway, let's get back over here with the source. So you have sound coming out of your CD player, left channel, right channel, but that goes through this biasing network here and decoupling caps. I think that's what they're called, but don't hold me to that. It goes to the base, so that modulates the transistor, and this is an oscillator. So you have your coil up here, current limiting resistor here, that gets warm. And then also, if you've ever experimented with changing the frequency of an FM oscillator, you can do that by varying the capacitance across the emitter collector. So that affects the internal capacitance in the transistor. So you can do it up here at the coil. I've done it on the emitter. In this case, I've found certain frequency bands by adjusting this guy, and then this modulates it. So this is like a course, and this is the actual workings that's doing the frequency modulation. Also on your coil, if you pull that apart or push it, or different diameters, that all affects your frequency of your tank. And you can go to certain internet sites and find an LC inductance or resonance calculator. Now inductance, if you're going to wind your own coil for a certain frequency, they'll get you in the ballpark. But it's for a single layer air. It gets real crazy after that. Okay, so this is oscillating. You have modulation coming in on the base, and you have modulation coming in here where I'm changing the capacitance. And for some reason, it's very happy. It works great, sounds good, and no hum. And the output comes off of the coil. Now you can experiment with coming off the collector, coming off of every single coil, just like, okay, do I attach it here, there, and you're getting close to your 9 volts, or you're getting close to your collector. Try that. But it's still a good idea to put a capacitor between your voltage and your antenna. Antenna hooked to the top of the coil, 5 turns. I wrote it all down here. I don't know if you can see it. I should zoom in and take a still and just have a still picture for a while. L1, 5 turns, number 18, gauge, solid. It's about 3/8 of an inch expanded, like coil to coil. And then the diameter, when you wrap it on something, make sure it's like 1/4 of an inch. If you use enameled wire, of course you're going to discover that you need to scrape some of that enamel off to attach your antenna. You could use bare wire that you've stripped the insulation off, so the whole wire, the whole inductor has no insulating coating on it, so that makes it easy to attach the antenna. Alright, 3/8 long, 1/4 of an inch inner diameter, 5 turns, 18 gauge. Now with this circuit, what I've built here for my garage or bedroom, it doesn't hit the FM broadcast band. It goes up a little higher, 150 to 175. So I have to really keep this low power. I did look into what is on that frequency range. I forgot what it was. I couldn't tell you here. But it's fine for around the house. So again, do not interfere with a company's transmission or a person's reception. But this does produce FM. Now my antenna, real quickly, and I'm done. Usually just have a vertical wire stuck inside the ceiling and drop it down to the capacitor and then the inductor. This time I said, well, I'll make a dipole. So this is coming off the coil. This one is ground, and it's a half-wave dipole, 60 inches total in length, about 30 inches each leg. vertical because you'll see FM radios with a vertical antenna. You can do half wave, quarter wave, eighth wave, you know. Figure that out, your, what is it, 492 over wavelength? And of course then you need to tune it and tweak it for the environment and everything else. What it's on, interference and stuff. But that's a fun, oh, I added a little LED to tell me when it's on. Red LED and a 10K resistor. What else? Little capacitor, 220, that value is not too critical. Sometimes you can put 100 microfarad also there. That's for like pops, clicks, noise. Anyway, this is no hum FM transmitter. I figured out going to the base with one channel and then the other channel goes to a like a varactor diode setup for the across the emitter collector. So it's a lot of fun. I advise doing this on copper clad. Copper, maybe a sheet of copper, make little islands that are insulated. Try that. This is probably real noisy and sketchy and hard to obtain your frequencies if you're doing this on a proto board, because these higher frequencies are real squirrely when you have too much capacitance and problems with proto boards. So. Here's FM at about 150 megahertz. That's pretty good. And this FM is coming off of a 60-inch vertical dipole. Are we on? Okay, I'm having a snack. Okay. Man's got to eat. Okay, somebody said, what about harmonics? You're right. All these oscillators, the AM, the FM oscillators, low frequencies, they produce harmonics. Well, is that a bad thing? Well, sometimes you can use the harmonics. Some crystals operate on harmonics. But anyway, real quick, with these transmitters, low power, you probably shouldn't have any problem around the house. But another form of interference besides the fundamental frequency, in this case 2 megahertz, for an example, 2 megahertz, you're thinking, okay, well, nobody around here uses that, 2 megahertz, whatever. What about your harmonics? Now, what is a harmonic? It is a multiple of the fundamental. We're transmitting at 2 megahertz, and without filters on the end, you just have, like the circuits I showed you today, you're going to have harmonics. Okay, you need to filter out those harmonics. You need to make a cutoff filter, or if this is your frequency here and higher up, you don't want those. You need to make a low pass. Okay, you're going to pass this one and cut off those, because out here your harmonics at 4 megahertz, 6 and 8. So people are using those. They're listening in for something else. With higher frequencies, you could be interfering with broadcast radio, television, hospital transmissions, medical. So, one place to go on the internet, that's full of calculators. And that's the way to go, is to look at a harmonic calculator or a LC cutoff, bandpass, band reject, etc. calculator. Now, for this example, I used RF tools. They don't even know I'm doing this, but they're all over the place. And it's just physics. They don't have a secret thing or anything. It just works this way. In between the transmitter and the antenna, you need to have your filter to filter out harmonics. Okay, so if we're transmitting at 2, that's good, and then you want to have it cut off all these down here. So there's no energy wasted out here. It's going to this guy, 2 megahertz. And I looked it up, and there's all these little boxes to fill out, and what kind you want to pick, a Butterworth or a Chebyshev? I think it's Russian. This is Butterworth. Is that how you say it, Butterworth? Anyway, and I picked 3 elements. You can make many, many elements, in other words, components in your filters. But here's the 2 megahertz, and out here is going to be the antenna. Well, to filter out these harmonics higher up, you want to pass the 2 megahertz through this inductor, 5.3 microhenries, but you want these caps here to grab these higher frequencies and suppress them. So you would put this in your circuit and then test the results. Primitively, you could just go to a receiver and tune around and see if you can hear your music at 4 megahertz, 6 and 8, on up, 12. So what this does, it passes this and then filters out those. So you pass your 2 megahertz and nothing else. Okay, well that's important. So when you build your oscillator and your transmitter of any frequency, your 1.377 or a 4 megahertz, whatever, the ones in the FM band. It's kind of hard to find crystals for the FM band, but your coil and capacitor tank circuit that's getting you up into the higher frequencies, the FM bands. You'll need to look up these and plug in the right frequencies, the right numbers, and then attach it to your circuit board and test it to see if you actually are suppressing your harmonics. That's it. Okay, have fun, safe transmitting. Don't interfere with anybody's reception or transmissions. Thanks. I'm going to go back to my potato chips and my beer. See ya.